It is 7:02 p.m. on Monday, October 7th, 2019, and I call to order this regular meeting of the Richfield School Board. In attendance this evening, we have board members Paula Cole, Peter Tensing, John Ashmead, Christine Malik, Tim Paulus. Superintendent Unowski is with us at the table, as well as for the first time, our student board members for 2019-2020, who we are going to hear more from them in just a moment, but to briefly introduce them now, we have Diane Maceo, we have Luz Luna, who goes by Lucy, and we have Naomi Ferguson, and we are so excited to have you with us this evening and for the rest of the school year. As we do our business this evening, we will strive to remain focused on Richfield Public Schools' mission statement that we inspire and empower each individual to learn, grow, and excel. And want to appreciate all of you who are here with us this evening and people watching on YouTube at home. There are copies of the agenda on the table there, and our first item of business is to approve the agenda before us, which I wanted to highlight has one change from what was posted on the website on Friday, which is removing agenda item 8, which was a closed session to discuss classified student data, as that item is no longer before us this evening. So with that, is anyone prepared to move the agenda as amended and before us this evening?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Hollis and a second by Mr. Tensing. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. So we begin with information and proposals, non-action items section of the agenda. We do not have public comment this evening. The next opportunity for public comment will be at our meeting on Monday, October 21st. But we do have a lengthy list of superintendent updates this evening. So I am going to turn things over to Superintendent Unowski to kick us off.
Absolutely. I thought I would try to overwhelm us with 7 superintendent update items. The first and certainly not least of which is our 3 brand new board representatives. The representative selection process, we send out applications and recruit people from our high school. Our representatives filled out the application. They then met with me, the superintendent, went through an interview, went through hot lights, went through a very difficult process, and then also met with our board chair, Crystal, deciding after that conversation to make the commitment to being on our board. And so we're very excited to have our 3 student reps here. I have prepped them for a question that they might be asked on a microphone. So I'm going to have each of our 3 board members, starting with Diane, who happens to be sitting closest to me, introduce themselves into the microphone and tell us why you chose to be a board representative this year.
Hi, I'm Diane Maceo, and the reason why I chose to be a student representative this year is that I'm kind of the person who's like, I'm not really motivated by many things, but the one thing that I really am passionate about and that I seek like a deeper knowledge of is like inequality of any kind, literally any injustice. And being on the school board, I really get to like, as a student, I get to listen into the problems my peers face at school, and I get to like bring that to the table here and talk about what my students think and my peers and I think at school, and I get to bring that to the table and just address the problem and just seek solutions for them.
Cool.
And Diane, what year are you at the high school?
I am a senior.
I'm Luz Luna, and I go by Lucy. I'm a junior at Richfield High School, and I decided to be on the school board because I love anything that has to do with school. I'm like a very school type of person, and just like Diana said, like inequality, like anything that has to do with inequalities, and like I'm a Latina and like I'm a minority, so a lot of what's going on right now has to surrounds around a lot of inequality, and so I like to bring my ideas and my peers' ideas to the table, and here is a really good spot to do that.
Okay. I'm Naomi Ferguson. I'm a junior, and I can say a lot, but I think mostly I want to be on the student board because, like, I want people to know that there's people just like them that are working on behalf of them, and like their voices can be heard through us. And like I want to like really like go into the school and make sure that everyone like feels heard here at like a bigger table, if that makes sense.
So for me as a superintendent, I'm excited and proud to have these three strong young women representing us at the school board, and also knowing that they're not just representing themselves, but all of the students of Richfield Public Schools. And so they are excited to take on the assignment of representing their students here, but also going back and gathering voice and having conversation to make sure that they're bringing a wide range of voice of Richfield Public Schools to our school board. So we're excited to welcome you, and we're excited to have you with us through this year. And if our two juniors decide so, hopefully they will continue on into the future. So welcome. All right, item 2, facilities project updates. And so we are obviously in the midst of some very significant renovations. We are early on in some, and we are midway through some others. And so with that, I'm going to bring Andy Faulkner up and begin a conversation about our facilities project update. Andy.
Thank you. So another facilities project update. We'll start kind of with the design status update. So we're feverishly in the design on the next round of projects that will go for bid here between now and the end of January. The first one is Centennial Elementary. We've got construction bid documents that are getting close to wrapped up. We're in front of you tonight with authorization to solicit bids, and if that's approved, then we're looking to have the bids due on November 12th. Our 75% CD estimates are within the allocated budget for the project, so that's why we're looking to go full steam ahead. Everything's tracking nicely on that. The middle school project, that is also in the construction documents. We've got a presentation scheduled for the next board meeting on the 21st. And then pending that, we're looking to issue those for bids on November 12th, and then the bids will be due in December. We've got some pre-bid dates figured in there around when students aren't in the buildings and stuff to get full access, that type of thing. Sheridan Hills Elementary is the last one of this year's projects to go out for bid. We're also working on construction documents on that one. The presentation for Sheridan is also scheduled for the 21st. With plans to be issued for bids on December 16th, and then, or to be issued, soliciting bids on December 16th, and then the bids will be due in January. So we'll look to do some of the pre-bid walkthroughs over the holiday break there for Sheridan Hills. So those are all in the design. So current project status, RDLS. So the kitchen addition, all the equipment is in place. We got the construction inspection completed on Friday, so that's been approved. The walk-in cooler and freezers are completed and operational. The exterior receiving way is complete. Final cleaning took place over the weekend, and the kitchen is approved for use as far as construction. We've got another inspection that's coming up with the health department for the physical operations. That the food services license is required to incorporate that inspection. So everything's looking good on that. To start serving lunch in there sometime this week, or else first start next week for sure. The RDLS Media Center edition, which that was the one addition that we said was going to drag into the school year when we started the project. And so that we're still working on the interior framing, mechanical and electrical work continues. We just started setting the aluminum frames, the curtain wall work. So you see a lot of open areas in the pictures. Those are actually all windows, so it's very open to the outside, and that aluminum framing has begun. The rooftop mechanical unit that serves the gym is on top of the Media Center edition. That's installed and operational. And it's currently scheduled to be completed by November 1st. So we're looking pretty good on that too in terms of our overall schedule. The entrance edition has been completed. The doors and hardware are complete. We were out there today working out some bugs with some of the secure entrance, buzzing in, actually getting into the office and then getting out of the office into the entryway. Because there's, as you know, with our new secure entries, how you come in, you get buzzed into that area and then you get buzzed out into the remainder of the building. So we're getting all that stuff operational. Miscellaneous detail finishes remain with the punch list. So we've got a piece of vinyl base here that might be coming off, or a transition with the flooring, some touch-up paint as Martha and her staff got moved in and started settling down. Then we come back and make sure we got all those things buttoned up. The exterior metal panels are also being fabricated. Those are on the front of the building, and they can't start the fabrication until they field measure them. So it's all weatherproof, but it's a long lead time to get those installed. Site work, we've got the parking lot, final lift of asphalt. It's been scheduled to take place every Saturday for the last 3 weeks. Unfortunately, we keep getting rained out. And so currently we're scheduled for next Saturday, which it actually doesn't look favorable then either. However, our whole goal was to try to get this done before MEA, because these asphalt companies get pretty booked up over MEA with schools. And we have solidified a spot on their schedule for MEA. So if it doesn't happen this weekend, it certainly will either Thursday, Friday, or Saturday of MEA. The kitchen addition and receiving area concrete work is installed. You can see that in the lower right-hand corner. The chiller, which is the upper right-hand corner picture, that's installed and complete. And the irrigation, we've got that, and they started last week installing all the irrigation around the site. and our sod is planned to be installed at the end of this week. So this is a couple other progress pictures of RDLS. The right hand and the lower one are of one of the new bathrooms that was opened up recently. The center one is the gym. So they were in there over the weekend getting that wrapped up. We were trying to get all the paint striping, the line striping done prior to this morning. We had some humidity issues in there over the weekend, so they didn't put the paint down because it would take about 5 days to cure. So this morning we actually had them pull off, and they're coming back on MEA so they can paint the lines on Thursday, and then it'll give us adequate time to stripe. But the school's now back in using their gym as of today. So that's a big thing that was needed. Over at our STEM, we're pretty close to wrapping up the interior renovations. The south bathrooms, we had some back order tile. We ran short on the accent tile, so we're waiting on that. That's planned to be completed in mid-November. The media center is complete. The flexible learning spaces have glass walls yet to be installed. Another field verification thing, we're just waiting. We had to wait a little bit for them to get fabricated. Those are slated to be here in the next couple weeks. The classroom work is complete, and we've got punch lists that have been issued and are being addressed. So we got contractors in at night in the classrooms. The fin tube radiation that goes around the perimeter, they've been in the classrooms at night installing that so as to not disrupt the classes. The phase that was scheduled to take place right now is the entrance addition. So in the upper right-hand corner, that is right next to the existing entrance, or the former main entrance in the existing building. So we're filling in that little corner there so you can see a grade beam that was poured. We had to do some earthwork in there to get that in place. And then the one on the left is down in the lower level. We're continuing with mechanical work throughout the school year, which was part of the plan. Originally giving the contractors an area to work while the kids remain in the building. And the lower right is just some of the new plumbing rough-in, which is on the north portion of the existing building, and that will be where the new main office area is. So I think that plumbing is either for bathrooms or the nurses area. And at the high school, so the entrance addition, we've got the structural steel set. I'm sure you guys have all seen that as you walked in. The interior mason wall framing is underway. Roofing is watertight as of this week, so we can get going on more of the mechanical and electrical rough-ins in that space. And we're currently estimated to be for completion on the new main entrance on November 11th. The courtyard addition, 2 weekends ago, the crane was here flying in that steel that you can see in the upper picture and the picture in the center. So that's the old courtyard part of where our new addition is. So we've got all that structural steel set and tied into the existing structure. And we're working through the roof framing as that continues to get that all tied in. That should come together pretty quick once we get it all buttoned up because it's an open space. There's not a lot of individual rooms. Got a big stair tower that will go in there as well. And that is currently scheduled for completion in mid-November. The kitchen. So the kitchen finishes continue. We're real close to getting all of them buttoned up. We got a little bit more tiling to take care of tomorrow. The dishwasher is set in place and connections are taking place. However, as of today, we had a piece of equipment that came out that wasn't the right dimension, so we got some modifications to go with that. The serving line tile work is complete. The kitchen equipment install is underway. The kitchen and the serving area are scheduled to be complete on October 11th. As of today, with the dishwasher room, we're not sure that we're going to make October 11th on the dishwasher room. We've had some communication with Pam and Nutrition Services regarding that. They're currently using disposable serving utensils, so we may have to do that for a couple days next week until we get the final clearance on that dishwasher. The media center, the furniture was set in place, so we're starting to look at stocking books in there. The finishes are complete throughout the media center, as well as the lower right-hand corner is a picture of the finishes around the auditorium. So we've got some vinyl wall covering that's got a wood look to it that kind of wraps the outside of the auditorium. And that's kind of where we're at in a nutshell right now. Any questions?
How is lunch looking like at all these places without? I think I like people to have an idea, because I think some people are worried about kids eating. I worked at a school for 6 years where we actually only had a hearing kitchen, not a cooking one, so
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
feel so, to me it's like, oh sure, but would you mind for people who don't know?
I can't speak exactly what they've been serving on a daily basis.
Well, not
but
the
so the
menu,
plan,
but like
what they've been
the-
doing is they've been prepping. So at the high school, the meals have been prepped at STEM
Okay.
or at the middle school,
Yes.
and then they're delivered over here. And then at RDLS, they've been prepped at STEM, and brought to RDLS.
So they've been
up until this
alternating
point.
with pizza options on 2 of the days a week. So warm pizza is brought in, and then they were prepping warm sandwiches on 1 of the other days a week, and then they were staggering cold lunch options and a wide range of different sandwiches and things of that nature on the other 2 days a week until we get there. We are looking at, it would appear after MEA at the latest, which is 7 more school days, to be serving full kitchen opportunities at high school. And while Andy generously said we should be serving hot lunch at RDLS, we've been prepping warm foods over at STEM and bringing them over. And so they've been alternating warm and cold over at RDLS also. And we'll be looking at, I will conservatively say after MEA, the kitchen will be fully operational, and we are shooting for before then, and that would not be a surprise. But we also need to make sure that our staff and our kitchen staff are trained on the new materials, the new machines, and making sure that they're set and good to go. So at worst, we anticipate 7 days more of school at the most, without kitchens being fully open, used, and operationalized to our wide range of menu opportunities at that point.
I don't have a question, but I want to point out the dedication of this young man standing before you. He had tickets to go to the Twins Yankees game tonight, and he turned them down to be here.
Did you do that before the 2 games in New York?
I did, yeah. I got a call on Thursday from somebody, and they said, hey, I got tickets to the game on Monday, do you want to go? And I'm a large baseball fan, so my house or my office. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And then I opened up my Outlook, and I looked at my calendar, and I said, no, I'm sorry, I can't go. But there's a chance, if the Twins win tonight, he might take me tomorrow. So.
There we go. Yeah.
I'm curious, and again, you don't have to have a question or say anything, but we obviously have 3 people here who are living this every day. So if there's anything that you're curious about or want to share about your experiences in the high school in particular, please let us know. While you're thinking, if there's anything that you want to say, I am curious, the planning that is happening for Centennial, the middle school, and Sheridan Hills. We experienced a lot of unforeseen delays this summer for reasons especially related to weather, but also some unexpected labor shortages that, we didn't necessarily know we were going to experience and are difficult for us to control. So I'm curious if the plans for next summer are evolving or how you're just sort of taking into consideration what we learned this past summer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. We started thinking about that in probably the beginning of August to get into a little bit more deeper conversation on the phasing specifically. At Centennial, we've met with the principal and talked about what areas we could possibly get into early. She said she could probably take the media center offline early. Pam with Nutrition Services also said that she would be more open to an alternative lunch for the last few weeks of school, if it doesn't mean to have it for the first few weeks of the start of school. So we're looking at possibly starting the kitchen early as well at Centennial. Sheridan, we're actually splitting up into 2 summers. It's a little bit easier of a building to do that with the different levels and stuff. So we're looking to do that just to give us a relief valve and give us a more tolerable workload. In the industry, there's not going to be a slowdown next summer either. We can forecast that. And then the middle school is always planned for a 2-summer project, just very similar to STEM, as it's designed. And so we've actually been meeting with the contractors to talk to them and say, hey, if you had to do this all over, what would you do differently? Would you do the second and third floor first, and then the first floor? Would you divide it up? So we're working through that. And then we always have to go back to the design team. I mean, they're in those conversations with people from Old with us to talk about, okay, what is the impact mechanically? Because mechanical and electrical really drives a lot of the phasing. And so then, take their thoughts into consideration and then try to see if that's true or if there's other hiccups that we can forecast. So we're digging in a little harder.
Looks like no other questions or comments.
That's right. Well, let's move on to Centennial and bid authorization, just to talk about. So we will actually take action or request action later on with a large presentation about what we were talking about at Centennial, because they have gone through most of the process. Is here in front of us today.
I'll turn it over to Mike and Nicolette from Old because they're the designers.
Thank you. So here we are again, kind of a very similar strategy to what you've seen in the past for the previous 3 projects. We basically went through think we can move to the next slide. As Andy talked about a little bit here, we have started kind of thinking about ways to, if there's a difference in phasing and just how we make something go a little smoother. This particular project, Centennial, is really of a dollar amount that is a little more conducive to a summertime construction time period, and so we're more optimistic. It's a fair amount less than Dual, for instance, so we think we can fit it in a little bit easier. But we, as Andy said, we're continuing to talk with the contractors to see what other suggestions they might have. We've indicated a phase one. Again, we think we can get into the media center early, begin abatement. I think abatement is something we're going to try to be a little more aggressive on this year, because I think that held us up a little more than we anticipated last year, and some of that was also just manpower shortages. Phase two, again, is a similar type of thing, getting into the boiler room early, and then usually that has a little bit later completion as well. I hadn't even noted this, but the kitchen thing is also, as Andy mentioned, we're starting to figure out what that might mean and how we get into that area. Phase three is really just the bulk of the building and just going at it. The nice thing about Centennial is there really are no new additions necessarily, so all of our work will not be dependent on weather, which will be nice, because that has been a little bit of a challenge for us this year. Next slide. Essentially, the referendum scopes are very similar to what we've talked about in the past. The district-wide initiatives, in particular at Centennial, will create the secure main entry. Again, very similar, no addition here. Matter of fact, it's really just modifying a kind of a check-in window to more of a door that enters into it. We will renovate the administration office. Again, it kind of expands to about twice the size that it currently is in the location that it is in. Relocating and consolidating the special ed suites, the media center, creating a little bit more of an open and extended kind of the resource areas that we've talked about, in particular moving them more towards the front of the building. So like some of the other schools when you walk into it, we'll show you those in a couple minutes. And then least but really most is still the LTFM, which is still the biggest part of the project. It's replacing all of the things that have reached the end of its life. And so again, that's always such a significant part. It's not as exciting to show in diagrams and stuff, but it really is a huge part of really what this effort is. Similar to the previous projects, we've spent countless hours just meeting with staff, meeting with administrators, going through all the different options that we have and how to not only meet the needs of all the pre-referendum requirements, but really how to, I guess, in some ways customize it to each building and kind of create a little bit of a uniqueness for each of those settings. We continue to have meetings with the city as well, and health department, obviously taking some even more aggressive approaches with trying to meet with them and understand what things they might be looking at. Again, this one is a little bit easier because we really don't at this point have in additions or really exterior work, so it does make it a little bit more straightforward project. So, next slide really is just indicating the existing building diagram. And so this is really just something that we use just to kind of really understand where everything is at the time we start. And this really, this is the reorganized plan. So generally speaking, the only big changes that we made to the classrooms were to move most of the classrooms onto the perimeter. Other than that, it's really just, we've added third grade, fourth grade, but quite frankly, they're just all the same classrooms and they'll be all designed in a similar manner. Secure entry, as we talked about, really the door that is kind of to the right in the secure vestibule is really just a check-in window at this point. It'll function in a similar manner. You'll be buzzed into that door, and then if you're allowed to, you'll be buzzed back out into the hallway. But all of the spaces within this area are really secure and meant to at least be able to hold people if you need to. Coming in the main entry, you can, up on the upper right-hand corner is roughly where the main entry is. You'll immediately see kind of a much more open space where that flex room is, and then that kind of opens up into the new media center. So a similar scenario with the book stacks, it can be locked off at night. So just like some of the other schools, the media center will be a little bit more of an open environment where it could be used for other things while still locking down other areas. Cafeteria and the kitchen, we're kind of excited about this one. The current cafeteria has a hallway between the kitchen and the servery. We've looked at just opening this up and creating a larger serving area. Currently, I think they try to manage more just one line or possibly two lines that just kind of always run into each other. So we've been able to expand that, and hopefully I think it'll be much more effective layout. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. All right, so some of this will be a little bit of repeat information from the last round, but I just want to reiterate it so that everybody is kind of on the same page. From a district standpoint, we've set out some standards as kind of a neutral palette for each school, and then introducing accents through the use of paint accents and carpet accents in each school to give it its own identity. So this is kind of a recap of our neutrals palette. And then, as you can see on the screen, I don't know this board is bringing the board so you can see the real colors. We use a lot of the existing buildings, items such as lockers, the wall materials in the corridors, the flooring that we know we're going to keep to inform the decisions that are made, so that the new things look nice and don't make the existing items look like they've been there for longer than the other items. So these are the accent colors. We did not choose any new ones actually from the first 3 schools. So we have a total of 7 accent carpets and a total of 13 paint accents throughout the district. So from a maintenance standpoint, it's really simple to upkeep, similar maintenance at each school. Go to the next slide. And these are some before and afters of some spaces. So we were able to open up some of the corners of the interior portion of the building here. So this is before of some restrooms. And then a rendering of one of the flex spaces. Some kindergarten rooms that will then become the media center. And then another view of the media center. Looking in that book stacks area that Mike was talking about, that area will have a foiling door to be locked down. And then that cafeteria servery. So if you see now, you can actually, the large opening that goes all the way to the kitchen there to allow for better flow.
We did not include any fly-through videos this time. They will be coming. We're still kind of working on some details, but we'll make sure that we bring that to you at a future date just so you see a little more exciting parts of what will happen there. Any questions?
Just a quick reminder as you think about that. So process-wise, this presentation predates the ability for a vote coming later for us to go out for bid to actually play out the process of doing the remodel.
And later this evening.
And that's later this evening, yes. Later today, and then the other schools there will be presentations coming back at our next meeting.
The only thing I would add is the design of Centennial falls in the same line with the designs of the other elementary schools, with the main entry, the media center with the lockable book stacks. You have an open field for other uses, and then some of those open flex spaces in the corners or wherever we can find them. So that's been the criteria throughout, that we're just trying to make sure we carry through it, providing quality to each one of the elementary schools.
Thank you.
All right, up to item number 4 on superintendent update, just the college in the schools value statement. So on a yearly basis, we are updated from the University of Minnesota on the value of our college in the schools courses. One of our main focal points in launching an early college model is to allow our students to graduate with up to 2 years of college in high school and having as much opportunity as they can to take those classes on campus. We don't know if we are the #1 school in terms of the amount of classes that we have on campus, but we know we are extremely competitive and are one of the highest proportion schools providing rigorous courses at the University of Minnesota level to our students. So this letter that we received just summarizes college in the schools across the state of Minnesota, of which 91% in the state of Minnesota are receiving a C or better, taking college in the schools, and 30% of the students in college in the schools at a statewide level are students of color. Over the years, we've expanded from somewhere in the range of saving $400,000 in tuition to our students, and approximately 60% of our students were white in college in the schools several years ago. And we have consistently increased and changed to transform the demographics of these classes to be more representative of our students. And so this is a statement about last year. where our students earned 2,058 credits. 86% of our students got a C or better, which actually matches the students of color across the state receiving a C or better. And so we are very similar in our grading practices to what's happening across the entire state of Minnesota. 63% of our students in our college-varying classes in the college and the schools are students of color. That tuition saved to those families is about $1.1 million. And so we're very proud of the amount of University of Minnesota college credits earned by our high school students. And with that, I'll see if there are any questions.
So the statement about 93 to 99% of those who requested credit recognition were successful at having some or all of their credits recognized. I'd be curious to know how many were not recognized and maybe like what kinds of classes those were and what the reasons might be.
We can absolutely check that. There are, what we understand, and I can check into it more specifically, but I'll have to come back with that, is there are some colleges that do not accept credits. They don't accept transfer-in credits. My best guess would be because U of M credits in college and the school credits and advanced placement credits tend to be accepted in most places. This is that it's not about our classes or individual classes. It is most likely about some of our students went to colleges where they do not accept any of those transfer-in credits. But I will double check that to be sure.
One thing I was you already talked about how significant the progress has been for us in terms of having racial diversity in the courses that we are offering here, which I think is hugely important. And there are still real disparities between our student population and the percentage of students who are taking college and the schools courses. The Hispanic Latino percentage in particular jumps out at me because it's 22%, and we know that is the largest student population that we have, I think around 40% at the district level. So I think just continuing to call that out and celebrate that we've come a long way and have a long way still to go to actually have the representation that we know is really important for all of our students in these courses.
Absolutely.
I kind of just wanted to add, I don't have to raise my hand, but I kind of just wanted to add that like it's kind of like a love-hate relationship with it because this is kind of like the achievement gap, and it's like, you know, some students love to see how like you said, how far we've came and like what we are now, but then again, it's like kind of sad to see that like we're still a statistic and that like you still see that people of color, specifically Latinos, are at like a 22%, whereas like the class is still like predominantly white. And how we're still like divided in that. So like I was kind of curious just to know like what kind of classes minorities are more prominent in, because I think the college class that has more Hispanics or minorities in general is like interesting to see, and it like depends because like is there more people of color in like a honors biology class or like a history class or like a CIS Spanish, like what are the courses that they're taking?
That's a great question. I'm hearing lots of good murmurs from the people in the audience too. I don't know if you heard that. And I think I would love to hear from you all as well. What are ideas or thoughts that you have to do more to expand that access and to talk about what these courses are and why they matter? I mean, they matter a lot financially too, like $1.1 million that our credits earn. That's a huge amount when we know what college can cost.
I think that, like we have yearly, like Dr. Daniels talks to each grade, and like I think that bringing that up would definitely be like a mind opener for students, because a lot of people don't know how much those credits are, and they don't know how much they're saving to go to school. And so I think that definitely letting students know more, because I know a lot of people don't, and if they knew, they'd definitely be taking more CIS classes, and there'd be more people of color who would do.
I'm also curious, are there CIS opportunities that we don't offer, and is there a reason we don't offer them? Or are the students aware, you know, are students made aware of courses that we maybe don't offer but could be offered with interest?
I mean, it actually fits really well into one of our other kind of strategic focus areas, which has been around basically doing some assessment of our overall scheduling process, whether it be at the middle school or the high school. The middle school now, with so many students in the middle school earning high school credit, it starts to become relevant at that level as well. And finding that balance between a scheduling process which is responsive to the students' needs, but also has a lot of guidance built in. Just so some of these exact points that Lucy brings up, where students may have gaps or holes in their knowledge, that we have strong guidance from the counseling office or from other caring adults in the district in collaboration with the students' caregiver, parent, guardian, whomever, so that we have that kind of collaborative scheduling process going on and really being proactive with meeting students' needs. So yeah, something that I think we need to look at holistically and with a fairly broad lens in terms of a number of pieces, because we know that scheduling is a complex thing with lots of moving parts, and there's a push and a pull that happens.
I'm going off of what Tim said. I would be interested in just basically a list of all of the different CIS classes that we do offer, just so that we can kind of get a picture of what we are offering, what's out there. And I know AP classes are also an option, so I guess I'd be interested in how much overlap do we have, what do we offer for AP versus CIS. And then also something that kind of just popped in my head is, I know a while ago that there was an extension for qualifications of teachers teaching CIS courses. And I don't remember what the end date was on that, but I know that they extended it, like the idea was that you had to have a degree in the area that you were teaching in. So I'm wondering where we sit on that, what the timeline is, how many of our teachers do have that qualification already, so the degree in the area that they're teaching in CIS, and how many we would have to get that in order to continue the class.
My memory of that was that we were well positioned for it. It was more of a problem outstate where there was perhaps a shortage of teachers with a specialized degree or background to handle it. But us being kind of right at the metro and with a highly qualified teaching staff, we were well positioned for it. But as we learned last year with the AP biology or whatever, that position can be fragile. So
Yeah, things change.
Things change quickly, right?
I have a set of notes. Yep, I've got all of those to advise Dr. Daniels. I believe she presents and the high school presents in January. Specifics related to racial composition in college level classes, figuring out how to comprehensively share information with students, making sure we're a proactive systemic scheduling and counseling model, checking into what colleges and schools opportunities we do not offer, but also a list of the ones we do offer along with AP classes. And then also double checking on qualifications for teachers teaching our college level classes and HR update timeline in relation to those expectations.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. The only one thing that I would add, Steve, is developing that list of measures that we can turn to get a sense of, because anecdotal information from students is always very helpful. It sort of brings puts life into the stories, but we know that we need to be looking at this holistically, and so having data that is reflecting the entire experience of our students is important. So would ask administration to be thinking about how that can be measured and reported.
And we do have some of those questions built into our student survey, which we anticipate going out this week and next week with conferences coming up. So we'll be able to report back some baseline data and have that conversation with the board. We'll cover some of that also. With that, I'm going to call up Dr. Roby and Director Clayson and Dr. Hines to talk a little bit about some of the things happening in talent development and advanced courses at the middle school.
Good evening. I'm just going to give an overview, and then Dr. Hines and Ms. Clayson will share some information with you about advanced courses at the middle school. This came about as we've been talking about how to provide different opportunities also at the middle school for our students and accelerating them in specific content areas The plan that you're going to hear about tonight is primarily an overview in mathematics. And this information was shared with our district curriculum advisory group at the tail end of last month at our first meeting. And we can give you a overview of what's taking place, what's planned for communication with our families this fall, as well as a foreshadowing of some of the things that we're planning on for spring and into the 2021 school year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Hines and Ms. Clayson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Hines. I'm the principal at the middle school. So we are just going to give you an overview of the multiple entry points that students have access to when it comes to acceleration in math at the middle school. So we have both a single and double accelerated opportunities for students with our CPM math. So with our single acceleration, students can come in and take a compacted 6th and 7th grade. So they would take the full standards of 6th grade and half of first half of the 7th grade standard. And then as a 7th grader, they would take 7-8 compacted, which would be the last half of the 7th grade standard with the full 8th grade standards. And then their 8th grade year, they would be able to take the high school credit intermediate algebra. For double accelerated, these are students that have exposure to all of the 6th grade standards. Many of our Minneapolis-Wyndham students that attend here, because they have taken telescope math at Wyndham, they have completed all of their 6th grade standards. So they would come in and they would take a compacted 7-8 as a 6th grader, and then they would go into 7th grade and take intermediate algebra, and ending their 8th grade year with geometry. So they would have an opportunity to take 2 high school credits in math, which will lead them to be able to come into high school as a 9th grader to take Algebra 2. Understanding that many of our, there's multiple gateways into having this accelerated opportunities, we want to make sure that we are offering students that option and informing parents of what those different on-ramps can be. So the goal is to send a letter home to all of our current 5th grade parents, informing them of the accelerated opportunities in math so that they can have those conversations with their students as a 5th grader and make decisions that will impact them as an RMS 6th grader. So what we want to do is to send them that information. We are also prepared to offer summer opportunities to help support in the acceleration for those families that choose to do that when they are only leaving 5th grade with only meeting 5th grade standards, having the opportunity for 5th grade standards. We are in conversations with all the elementary principals to identify pathways for acceleration at the elementary so that they have the same opportunities that our Minneapolis neighbors are giving their students at Wyndham.
I don't really know what to add to this, because you did such a nice job. This has been a really great partnership with Dr. Hines. As you know, that this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and being able to provide opportunities for our academically advanced students in different areas is paramount and helping them excel at their highest levels as well. I did some research. With our identification process, because we have Wyndham families coming in with a different experience than what many of our students have had in Richfield Public Schools. We are taking a look at what we're doing at our elementary schools. I've been working for the past year, over a year now, with the STEM school in providing enrichment for their 5th grade students. and preparing them for acceleration. So math is more of a sequential subject, and it lends itself well to a faster pace as well as an enrichment. And that's why we, in working together, have created this draft document with multiple entry points. We know that there are students who want to self-accelerate. They want to take summers and get them even further ahead so that they can get into these more advanced courses to earn college or high school credit at the middle school and open up more areas for learning at the high school level. So we've been servicing high math students for a long time. We're in our second year of our advanced language arts students for all 3 grade levels. It's going really well. The teacher is a rock star who teaches all 3 grade levels, so she's actually looping her students there. And we want that same opportunity for our math students as well. The one area that we're working really closely with is the fact that we have a new secondary math curriculum. And it's new for all of us, and we're trying to navigate our way through understanding how acceleration and compacting and differentiating works with the CPM curriculum.
What does CPM stand for?
College Preparatory Mathematics. I used to be a teacher of CMP, and so it gets in my brain.
Are these classes in the classroom just like other math?
Yes.
I'm the telescope lead where I'm at for elementary, because that's K-8. And it's just computer based.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
The way that telescope is done, but that comes with challenges if you only have someone there who's not really, because the telescope students, they just have this ability to grasp concepts quicker than a lot of their peers, but they still need to learn the concepts. So that to me is a challenge with the computer base. So when the way we're doing it here, you're saying it's just the class in a way that the standards are compacted.
Yep.
So the courses that you guys have in the middle school, are those an option, or are the students just placed in it who would like score higher?
So we do identify based on achievement levels, but we also take a look at each individual. So it's a process, right? So we take a look. We start at a certain percentile in achievement, but then we take a look I look at every single middle school student, right? I take a look at their background. I take a look at their, because my job is to, one of the things that I believe very deeply in is that we have historically underserved students who deserve the same opportunity for advancement as, I'll name it, as our white students. And so I take a look at their entire test history. I'll take a look at whether, at their I'll take a look at race and ethnicity and all those things that have traditionally biased students and precluded them from entering these classrooms, and do everything possible to get them in there.
So let's say like hypothetically a student who doesn't necessarily score the highest in like standardized testing, but like gets by with honor roll grades, which is very different. Like, can they still be eligible for classes?
Grades are an interesting subject to bring up, because as you 3 students, and I'm talking to you guys right now, as you 3 students know, grades can be relatively subjective based on the teacher who's putting that A or B or C on a paper, right? And so I take a less look at grades, and I take more of, I've had students email me, I've had I've met with students and parents, and I look at it as if students really feel as though they can do this, then, and we go through all of the different scenarios. We had a conversation with a family at the middle school just recently, And we go through all the scenarios like the what if, the what if, the what if, because I want to make sure that the students are also, I don't want to set anybody up to fail either, because that's really awful. And it really does a number on your self-esteem. But we go through all of the different scenarios, and if they're ready to do this, and they're really ready to do this, then I want to give them the opportunity to be able to do this.
I took, going into my freshman year, the summer going into my freshman year, I took it was like a summer course where you can go up a math level, and it really helped because I didn't think that I should be in the math level that I was in, so I wanted to do it to excel. And do you guys still offer that?
We have the last, I remember that summer, that was the first time we had done that.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a lot of interest the next year, but it's something that we were looking at for summer of 2020 to move forward.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how these math classes are presented. Are they traditional? Are they flipped? Are they blended? Because one thing that really stands out to me for math is it lends itself well to a student working at their own pace. So if you're putting them in accelerated or double accelerated, and these are your options or regular, it's not very I feel like we could offer more flexibility if we allowed some level of working at their own pace. I know that logistically that's probably really hard, but.
So right now the classes are compacted and they're in the CPM format. So they are still following the CPM framework. It's more faster as far as the compacted because they have less time to cover a wide range of standards to make sure that students are moving towards mastery.
Are they still like learning in the classroom and then going home and doing homework? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I know we did this. I know they did this last year. How do you feel like it went last year with? I know I heard there were some kids in double accelerated math last year. Do you guys feel like it was successful? Are they progressing well in the next level?
So I did a walkthrough of our geometry class, and there are a couple of double accelerated students in the geometry class, and that is the most high functioning class with the CPM setup, where students are every student is fully engaged in the conversation and the in-depth learning.
I just do want to reiterate the fact that the secondary curriculum is new, and we're navigating through how it needs to be implemented the way it's supposed to be implemented, and yet I don't want to say juggle, but having this component as well. So when you talk about a flipped classroom, I don't believe that CPM lends itself well to a flipped classroom. Would I love for students to be able to run with it at their own pace, and as long as they get a deep understanding of mathematical concepts and not just a memorization of algorithms. I want to make sure that we have both.
But that would be unique if we have, so I'm a math person by training, and it's a subject that allows people to run as far as they want in a particular direction, more now than ever with the access to things on the web. But the courses themselves, the core courses are still the core courses, right? So a student in algebra/geometry still has to advance through the standards within that class. And some might find it boring because it's so easy, and some might find it challenging because they find it boring. It's interesting. It is true that another variable on top of that is the changing curriculum, which when last year with the double accelerated, so my daughter was in the class, and the change into that curriculum while simultaneously jumping into the double accelerated class presented a lot of challenges for the kids within it. Just because they had to get used to the new format and style, as well as the pace and the skipping over some things that may have been considered, in a normal setting would have been covered in the prior class, but you can streamline a lot of things out if you want. And so the presumption of what's known already might not have been real for those kids who were double accelerated, And then you layer on top of that the different style, and then the adjustment to it was, from this parent's perspective, rough. So, but we survived.
So I know you also made some changes to semesters and the way that things are organized and, I can't remember the choice AB classes, and then also like it's choice classes? Exploratory classes. So could you talk a little bit about how that's set up and the different types of classes? Because I know it's very different from what it used to be.
Sure. So this year we moved away from trimesters into semesters with a hard grading period every quarter to help students with their pacing as they transition into high school. So what we're using the middle school as is that foundation building location so that when students move into the high school, they're ready to hit the ground running. With that, we leveled our teacher coverage. So instead of some teachers teaching 5 FTEs and some teaching 6, we leveled everything that every teacher is teaching 5.5 FTEs, except for one, and that's our advanced ELA teacher. So with that 0.5 additional teaching assignment, all teachers are teaching a college and career readiness course, and we call it CCR. And what that college and career readiness course is everything that you all have desired to happen at the high school is to give students the opportunity to take AP and CIS classes at the college level. So what we do is we are exposing students to what does it take to graduate high school? What does it take to enter into college? So that CCR course exposes them to those opportunities early. How much does college cost? How much do you want to make when you grow up? So they are starting to dream now in the middle school through CCR. With that, they also, so how that's built within the schedule, with the change from trimesters to semesters, and also building in the district strategic plan for the college and career pathways. Because we are making sure that we are exposing all of our current 8th graders to the 4 pathways that will be offered at the high school. Those classes are quarter classes, and each 8th grader has an opportunity to rotate through each one of those 4 pathways. What that also does, it gives us an opportunity to offer semester classes for some of our exploratory. But because of the way our master schedule is designed with the AB schedule, some of the exploratory classes are year-long on the AB day, so it's actually a semester course that goes from September to June. So they go to that class every other day. Some classes are a full semester, so they'll run either first semester or second semester. Yeah, those are 3 different options. So it's very complex how our guidance counselors took my vision and put it into practice. So the way it's offered, and what you may have an exploratory class that will run 2 different ways, right? It may be on an AB day, year-long class, but it also may be on a one semester course.
And so for those other exploratory classes, is there a choice involved for the students? Or, because it used to be, so spread out and they had so many opportunities, kids could choose, and they were exposed to a variety of things throughout.
Well, take into consideration, we have a lot of programs offered at the middle school. So we have the DLI program, we have our band and choir program, we have our Spanish high school credit earning opportunities, which is a year-long classes. So when we schedule students, we ensure that they are in those selected programs first. and depending on how the master schedule is designed, it may lead to some choice in what the students can choose as far as an exploratory, and sometimes it cannot. We know that we have requirements that every student has to take per grade level for PE, for fine arts, PE, fine arts. So there's specific classes that they have to take per state requirement. So depending upon how the master schedule is designed, will determine if there is a lot of choice or if there's little choice, because they did choose when they chose DLI or band or choir.
I feel like my question is just going to keep us further afield from the topic. So it could potentially be for when you come back and actually do the middle school's monthly presentation. I'm not sure when that is going to be, but I would be interested to know more about the change that you described to the college and career readiness course, and just knowing more about what does that entail, and is there a curriculum that we're using for that, because that feels like a relatively significant change. It replaced Spartan time, I believe. So that's something that I would love to know more about when the time is appropriate.
I guess that what I wanted to say is, number one, thank you for a very detailed presentation, and thank you for a clear commitment to what I'm hearing is a couple things. Number one is a clear commitment to accelerating our middle school students so that they are able to take advantage of all the opportunities that they have at the high school level and beyond. So thank you very much for that. Number two, I'm hearing a very clear commitment to moving toward the outcome where the students who are taking advantage of these opportunities reflect our student body as a whole in terms of whether it be the demographic mix, the racial mix, the mix of students who are coming from poverty, et cetera. And so thank you very much for those commitments. And as you know, we'll be monitoring with you our success as a group in sort of meeting those goals. The one thing that it seems like it really kind of hits as far as a common theme is the need to be proactive and to be thinking ahead, thinking 2-3 years down the road as we guide our students in terms of designing what that experience is going to look like. We know that has not been our strong suit from a guidance and counseling perspective, and so I'm eager to see that to continue to grow as we get more proactive. And one of the biggest things that we heard from our high school students in Reimagine was the desire to have an academic program that felt like it was meeting their goals in life, and that was empowering them to achieve their dreams. And so I'm hearing from you that you heard that, and I think we're just anxious to also see those outcomes, as it kind of develops.
Thank you.
So thank you.
All right, a couple last items in the superintendent report. Just as a reminder, we did round 2 of my goals, and there was an area where there were questions, and the board had suggested that they would reflect on this particular goal, provide some additional guidance prior to finalizing superintendent goals. One of those goals is increased present voice and participation of families representative of the diversity of Richfield Public Schools community. And trying to figure out what are authentic ways to measure it. We talked about disaggregated attendance at PTO committees, advisories, but certainly not a holistic way. And so we were looking for some additional input, which can happen briefly now, but also between now and the next meeting or two, so that I can finalize those goals. I know that Director Cole had posted some questions publicly about what would that look like authentically. I also know that Board Chair Brackey talked about some of our Indian Education Committee, our Safe and Supportive Schools Committee, and our Richfield Latino Family Association, and asking them what would be good ways to authentically measure parent involvement and family involvement. I will go about those processes in the coming weeks. Are there any thoughts from board members?
I think that from asking that question, interesting, like this common idea of, it's not so much the participation per se that you can even measure, but it's really this idea of feeling welcome. And by doing events that are, culturally responsive to families that inspire families to come and feel that their different backgrounds are being celebrated. Because if we think about ensuring that families are happy with not only the education but also the environment into which the children come into each day, that's important. And so, and that other thing I sent you about Mendota Heights, that was actually my principal once. So he was always very supportive of my parent engagement, and I can see that he's didn't get the idea from me. It's not what I'm saying, but so trying to adjust that, seeing what other districts are doing into that.
Yes, I followed up with the superintendent, Dr. Olson Scoop from that district. He is compiling a list of the parent involvement activities that they have done. And they were outlined by the Association of Metropolitan School Districts for having some pretty significant successes in parent involvement, which was being attributed to leading to some significant gains in graduation rates. He did share that they did not currently have any measures of the parent involvement, but he did agree to share with us all the practices that they're doing, so I anticipate getting that. So.
And I think the improvement in grades to me is a measurement. Because I really think that having that partnership, I think you have now two different sets of eyes, keeping staff, keeping students, keeping families accountable. And I'm curious to see how that translates to a more successful academic year.
I think to echo what you alluded to, one of the things that I was thinking about since we last discussed this is more trying to see how can we do something that is going to change the way that we engage with families, not the way that families engage with us, but something that would represent a different frame of mind or approach about what we are responsible for doing in a way that, as Paula said, makes people feel welcome and makes them want to be present and come to whatever it might be. And so that's, I think, what I'm trying to figure out, how to set the goal around that leads us to do our work differently instead of just trying to get people to come to the existing things that we do at higher rates.
So we'll continue on with that.
And any ideas, also from those of you towards this end of the table, we'd love to hear too. Now or later.
I think that having voices like you who speak Spanish, and like when Hispanics, when they see that somebody like them is trying to make a change in our community and is trying to get them to be more active in the community, I think that would help a lot. Not always having it be the same person all the time.
I'm there.
Thank you.
All right. To be continued on that discussion. And then also a brief intro of another topic to be introduced. So we took our official October 1 count. As a reminder, we do a where we are in enrollment report. I believe that report hits at the end of November or early December typically, which talks about class sizes, overall enrollment, and a wide range of our data. But our official enrollment count is reported to the state of Minnesota on October 1st. In which there is embedded some very good news and then some not quite as good news. Obviously, we were projecting to lose a relatively significant number of students. We actually are better than projection by 76 students, which is the excellent news. And so we have more students in our schools than anticipated based on our census data, based on the market share data, and based on the students available in Richfield. But that also constituted a 53 student reduction from the students last year. So while while it is better than anticipated, it is also one of those sort of mixed blessings. What that looks like is a significant growth above projections, specifically at RDLS by 17 and at STEM by 55. We're a little bit below projection at Sheridan, 26 students below, and then at RCEP, which tends to grow throughout the year by 10. A couple of hot spots that we've been looking at to provide some additional supports. Class sizes at RDLS in kindergarten and first grade, and STEM in class sizes at 5th grade, but a little bit above where we'd like them to be. High 20s, 26, 27 in the K and 1 classrooms at RDLS. We're looking at about 30 at STEM in 5th grade. And so we're looking at what additional supports would be successful there to help provide some of those additional supports to our students. As a reminder, we had also already added some of the staff that are budgeted for to mitigate some of those class sizes in advance. And so just a reminder, this is just that intro number, just to share out the October 1 count. And as a reminder, all of that data gets shared on the second meeting in November or early in December. And then briefly on enrollment counts.
Remind me when we do our projection. Is that in March when we actually do the projection?
We do it as part of the budget process
Yeah.
throughout the spring. So we initially actually began talking about it as admin in January, beginning February,
Okay.
and then we began to bring that to the board once we refined it, typically end of February or March.
Okay, thanks.
So that was the last item of the lengthy superintendent update, and we now have several commendations where we get to enjoy recognizing members of our district and community for good work.
Absolutely. So I'm going to combine the first two because they're actually both to Kevin Gullickson. One from Christina Gonzalez and Rosa Rubio, and one from Patrick O'Keefe, our Blessed Trinity principal. So Christina and Rosa shared that Christina's starting her 6th year in Richfield, and she could say with confidence that Kevin has demonstrated radical hospitality in every encounter. From finding small lost packages, accessing special education files in the dark, to hauling school supplies, winter coats, snow pants, and gloves to our students. Kevin even received 8 pallets of donation from Veep, and he found a home and a problem-solving meeting for those pallets. Kevin just consistently goes above and beyond as a constant force of solutions, smiles, and respect. And so Christina and Rosa wanted to thank him for that. And then also Patrick O'Keefe, talking about the amazing work that he has done with one of our external partners, doing a phenomenal job searching for boxes of books that went missing to Blessed Trinity. And through the process, even with construction, he was extremely responsive, thinking ahead, planning and working very collaboratively with our Blessed Trinity partners. He's an incredible asset in the gift with which he takes his job seriously and goes above and beyond to make sure all of our kids have what they need. He's a gem among the people working at RPS. And you have wonderful people working at RPS. Kevin Gullickson is fantastic. He deserves every acknowledgement of his incredible work. So congratulations to Kevin Gullickson being recognized both internally and externally for some of his amazing work. And then also, Kyle Gustafson was recognized from Shannon Lindbergh and Facilities, wanting to recognize his outstanding performance. Specifically to a Friday recently where the Richfield High School government advisor needed to change the location of the homecoming dance for Saturday. For those of us living with no air conditioning in this building, we wanted to move it to a location like the middle school, which had it. Logistics weren't quite working out, and so Kyle was solution-oriented and positive. He went in on Saturday morning to turn on the air handlers and make sure that the middle school was cooled down for the dance, coming in also at 5 o'clock to work with the DJ and working with our tables. He was willing to help in whatever way he could, changed his plans outside of work to accommodate the change in venue, and made it easy to make the change to provide a more pleasurable experience for our students and have a successful homecoming. So thank you to Kyle Gustafson. And finally, Richfield resident Melissa LaPlante got a commendation from Principal Shasavan. This week we had a Richfield resident do a wonderful thing for RDLS. The annual fundraising company delivered boxes to her home by accident rather than to the school. And on Monday she called to let us know and actually brought the boxes to us at Richfield Public Schools. So we're very pleased and proud of the work of Melissa LaPlante. So thank you and congratulations to our internal workers and our external partners. Thank you.
I want to give a big kudos to that neighbor because those boxes are heavy. They have food, frozen food, I'm curious to see how that happened though, like.
That's a big
Goodness
delivery
sake.
to the wrong place.
Clearly a confusion to the wrong place, yes. And again, we offered to bring them and she insisted on bringing them to us.
Amazing, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so the next item now on our agenda is approval of the consent agenda containing routine business items. As always, if there is an individual item here that someone would like to remove for independent consideration, you can request doing that at this time. Otherwise, we could entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I would move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Malik and a second by Mr. Ashmead. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the consent agenda is approved. So we will move into old business items that are before us this evening. The first of which is a third review of Board Policy 585 on student surveys. So this is very timely. Superintendent Yunowski, you are going to introduce this, I believe.
Absolutely, jumping ahead to page 71, so we're picking up speed a little bit. This is a third read. Sometimes our third read is our final. That may or may not be the case because there were obviously some significant changes that occurred between the most recent read and this one. You'll notice we left multiple copies in the board packet, including the red line copy, the guidelines created to support the policy, and then also the Minnesota School Board Association policy, which supports this. Talking about surveys and how we conduct them, I think some of the very key components are that we are defining what district surveys are, and they're surveys going out across the district, multiple grade bands, multiple buildings. It is realigning our policy to align to new statutes, so that we'll make our survey materials available for inspection in advance by students, parents, and guardians. We will be notifying parents of surveys to be administered and also providing an opt-out form and a process that allows to maintain full confidentiality of our students and no consequences whether students choose to or do not choose to participate. So that is the set of redlined items within this particular policy. And then the guidelines remain the same as previous. See if there are any questions about student surveys and student survey policy.
I appreciated the definition of what student surveys qualify for at the district level, because I think that was the clarity that we were really trying to get to say that, you know, an individual survey that's done for one class does not actually fall under this policy, and I think that's really important to make clear. The one thing in the revisions that I'm a little just confused by is section 4D, where it says the school board will make survey materials available for inspection by students, parents, or guardians, just because I'm not sure the school board is actually the right body to do that.
Correct, that is school district or school administration, but the school district would be the proper language, and it's the exact thing used in E, F, and G.
Great. So we would just change that from school board to school district in part D, is what you're saying?
Yes, 4D would change the word board to districts.
Okay.
Yes.
The opt-out process, so we talk in E, we talk about the notice portion of the, I guess that, I gotta organize my thoughts here. What I'm trying to get at is multiple methods of communication. And so I feel that E is implying that there are multiple means of communication that would be going out that would include maybe mail, something mailed to the home, that may include a handout that's sent home to students, that may include just direct communication with students in their classrooms, about the purpose of the survey, the opt-out process, and all that kind of stuff. In F, we're specific to saying that that information is present on the school district website. Does that exclude other sort of non-digital means of accessing survey information and opt-out forms?
No, and this followed the model policy. So there are two different ways. It is acknowledging that we will absolutely provide the survey information and opt-out and have that available on the website. But then from E, We will also proactively be notifying parents about the process, including the opt-outs.
Yeah, okay. That's
Sort of at least two separate methods of communication will occur in each of those.
I do think to what I believe Peter was also touching on within E, the question I had was, one, what does sufficient time mean? Because I think that can mean very different things to different people. Is that a week's advance notice? Is it a month advance notice? And then I think the second thing is, what are the methods being used? Because we certainly hear a lot from people who are saying, I didn't get that email that went out to, you know, all people in a particular school or across the district. And so it gives me a little concern that we could have people saying, I didn't know that this survey was going out, maybe because I didn't get it via email. So I think that goes to Pete's question about what are the different methods that are going to be used.
Right, we have to understand that regardless of how much time and effort notice we might give, there will be people who don't find it.
right.
Yes.
And are agreed. But the fact that we don't have a measure of what sufficient time is and what sort of is that we, you know, not that we would play loose with that, but it suggests we could, right? It suggests we could say, hey, we noticed everyone, and then the next day it happened. And I don't, you know, so we should be thoughtful about what we believe constitutes sufficient time of notice for parents for a survey at a district-wide level.
We will work on clarification there.
So it sounds like this will come back for a fourth read, but it's important to get it right. So the next items of old business are a series of change orders for our facilities projects at RDLS, STEM, and the high school for work that is currently happening there. Are you going to?
I'm going to present those, and then if I give Andy the look, he's going to step up and help me if there are any significant questions. So obviously we are required to come to the board with significant change orders, and so we have a summary of them. RDLS, there are 3 change orders, each with an increase. Additional costs in regards to change order number 6, $18,755. Basically ductwork, electrical conduit, fire alarm control panel, dishwater washer booster heater in the kitchen area. And change order number 7, underground storm sewer piping to make sure that we have effective roof drainage and drainage overall. And then change order number 8, all 3 of these are at RDLS with security laminated glass at the secure vestibule entry. Just as a reminder, with these change orders, overall project cost was originally bidded out at $9,048,000. This project is still below budget at $8.9 million. And so we're still running under budget at RDLS.
I will move that we approve the change orders as presented.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Titzing and a second by Mr. Ashmead. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and change orders 6, 7, and 8 for RDLS are approved. So we will move to our STEM change orders number 5, 6, and 7.
Our STEM change orders. All right, 5, 6, and 7. Change order 5 for the elementary school. Locks for the cabinets, more power data to the tech room, sort of things that we are learning as we go along. And we have users in the rooms finding things that we need to add. Existing finishes around some of the spaces. And some additional patching and additions in the media center. Change order number 6, cost of adding electrical outlets for interactive displays, filling some exterior openings and columns, adding some marker boards and some modifications to the art room. And then some of that, what would have been a higher cost was reduced by different flow meters and changing some piping requirements for the classroom ventilators. And then change order 7, changing some of the mechanicals to accommodate the required size of the ductwork. This project originally at $14.8 million is now at $14.966, a little bit over budget, but still also within our contingency. And just as a reminder, when I combine all 3 of these, we're going to end up under 1% over budget and well within, significantly within contingency when we look at all of our sites.
It's very helpful, thank you.
Yes.
I'll move the change order as presented.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Paulus and a second by Mr. Tensing. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the change orders for our STEM are approved. Last but certainly not least, we have Richfield High School facilities change order number 4.
Yes, which we'll call a very expensive dishwasher. Rather than using the old dishwasher, it was a replacement that was not necessarily fully anticipated. $38,000 dishwasher. It is a very significant line with a lot of automation and it replaced and will continue to make that work successfully. So this project originally at $35.4 million is now at $35.7 million. $300,000 over, which again is under 1% over overall. And still well within our contingency.
All I want is a tour of the dishwasher. I am serious.
So I thought the same thing, and then I was reminded there's a dishwasher room. And so this is nothing like an individual dishwasher. This is a multiple line, great amount of automation, significant.
I need to see
And we will absolutely provide tours of the dishwasher.
Have a field trip.
If you've ever worked in a restaurant, it's really actually very cool.
I've never seen one. I'm really curious. I'm not saying that, you know. I mean, for not doing dishes, I'll pay anything.
Okay, who wants to move a $38,000 dishwasher?
So moved.
I thought it was you. So we have a motion by Ms. Cole and a second, I think I heard Mr. Paulus first. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and change order number 4 for Richfield High School is approved. So we now move into new business items before us for the first time this evening. First up is the administrative guideline for Board Policy 524 on promotion, retention, and acceleration.
All right, and just as a reminder, this is not, we're not re-looking at the policy. The policy is put in for reference. This is promotion, retention, and acceleration, the philosophy and implementation of how do we advance students, when do we decide to retain students, and how do we accelerate academically. You'll see in the board packet the copy of 524.1, the guideline. And we're sort of toying at the moment with whether we need to do an entire overhaul or just do some updates. But guideline 524.1 talks about the conditions and the way that we look at whether or not we are going to be talking about promoting or accelerating students and the process that we go about that. And so we put in a red line edition with some of these small obvious changes and then are having a larger conversation with Ms. Clayson and Dr. Roby about whether or not we'll be doing a total overhaul and bringing that back for the next meeting. So this is just as a reminder in our first read to refamiliarize ourselves with some of the guidelines as we continue to work through the 5-year cycle of reviewing all of our policies and guidelines.
It looks like the primary focus of the revisions to date are to call out specifically that it's a collaborative process with parents and guardians, and that it is holistic in terms of looking not just at academic performance, but age, social maturity, physical maturity, emotional maturity, parental and student attitudes. So,
yes,
I think those are all good things. Is that the general gist of where we're going?
We'll say the red line pieces that we did bring it up to our current philosophy, which is making sure that it spells those pieces out. The question we're having from an academics perspective is whether or not that's enough, or whether or not we want to do a full rewrite and redo that. So we wanted to show you where we will go if we leave it as such, and then we're going to have some conversation over the next week or two to decide how we want to proceed as a district team.
Before I suggested a massive rewrite, I mean, how often is it invoked, utilized, or referenced?
We will bring that information back also.
Like, is there one case a year?
More.
Okay.
I think the just hearing that you all are sort of in conversation about whether to do the overhaul on this, my eye sort of went to the fact that this is from April 1997, and that is older than our 3 student board representatives, and thinking about how much has changed in that amount of time. About
their parents too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just how I think we think about this has changed a lot. And so that sort of led me to feel like a little bit more of an overhaul that is in line with what we know and believe about these things. Feels like it could be time well spent.
And the times that we have done it have been very positive experience.
So next we have a first review of board policy 412 on public and private personnel data.
All right, so and just as a reminder of our process, and also saying it out loud so our new board representative students can hear, when we bring a policy for the first time and we review them on a 5-year cycle, the first time we review is just to bring it to all of our attention, make sure that we are doing that full thorough read once again, and then beginning to examine what the policy is and why, and where are those areas that we need to examine to bring it up to speed. We also present the School Board Association. What the School Board Association does is they go through the policies, they look at all the legal changes that have happened since the last time policies were reviewed, and they write a draft policy. And so we're able to look at our policy and theirs and make sure we are up to speed legally, but then also we make sure that it matches our community and matches us. And so 412 outlines what data is public and what data is private, and this is in relation to our employees. It also talks about how do we protect that data, what do we do with that data, and under what circumstances it's shared, and under what circumstances is it not shared. And so you'll see 412, and then you'll see the matching policy, and then some of our policies have guidelines, and those guidelines spell out the rules and procedures for which we go about implementing the policy. And so you'll see the redlined copy of some of the obvious easy changes in relation to public and private personnel data. And so beginning to bring that up to speed with some of the things that have changed, and also clarifying some of the things that we prefer, like taking out FERPA and saying Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act to be clear, making sure that we're being very clear in all of the language that we use, and then also adding things like badge number that are specific locally to us. And so you see some of those initial changes in there. And so we are asking board members to read that and provide any feedback that they may have on changes pertaining to your guideline.
Just for clarity, like on a policy like this, that so something like badge number, which might be something we have that would be relevant, that might not be in the model policy. But I mean, I imagine that the model policy would be something we want to adhere to pretty carefully in this instance. Right?
Yes, for the most part, we try to work with model policies unless there are things locally that don't seem to match. The model policies typically review the entirety of statute and all the statutory changes, and so we make sure that everything that we're doing applies to that.
Right. This isn't an area where we would be leaders. I don't think. I mean, it's just a minefield to avoid getting sued. Is it not?
In some ways,
how
yes.
we protect the personnel data of the people who work here.
Correct. And the reason this one hasn't been reviewed in quite a while, and so this is why you see so many changes, because it's been a while.
Right. It's been a number of years here.
Yes.
Question on what constitutes, this would be section okay, I'm in the policy. I am in 4A, and then this is the subsection, I'm sorry, this is actually 4D. Applicants for appointment to a public body. What constitutes a public body? Obviously, this is a public body. Do we have any other such groups? Would an ad hoc committee or an advisory committee of the board be considered a public body, for example?
I don't know, but we will absolutely look into that.
Yeah.
We'll check with our legal advisor and double check that. Other questions or things that people want us to follow up on specifically? Otherwise, we'll continue revising the policy.
I guess one last piece. This is a public body, but we should think about our students, our student board members, and if we would hold the same if the same data that is legitimately public on us as adult board members would be legitimately public about our student board members.
So that's easy, and that one's no.
Yeah.
And even if you look at our websites, we have posted the picture and names of our board members. They do not have their email, they do not have their phone number, they do not have their home addresses posted. This is for employees. There's actually a different policy that
Okay, good. Thank you.
that applies to our students in terms of their.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, we can move on next to designating an identified official with authority. And I actually have a question. I realized it says resolution on the agenda, but not in the packet. Do we know if this is a resolution item? It is a resolution. Great, glad I asked. So the recommendation is to designate Angela Marin as the identified official with authority for the district.
Yes, and so this delegates to Angela the ability to assign signing status through the Minnesota Department of Ed for a wide range of different things, from finance to HR to website updates and information updates that relate to our district. And so she doesn't necessarily then do all of that work. She assigns, for example, Dr. Roby the responsibility and to go in and do certain things, and she assigns me then those rights. And this is usually the expectation for us to do this.
I'll move the resolution as presented.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Paulus and a second by Ms. Malik. As this is a resolution, or sorry, is there any further discussion? As this is a resolution, I will pull the board. Cole.
Aye.
Tenzing.
Aye.
Ashmead.
Aye.
Malik. Aye. Paulus.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, and the designation is granted. Next, we have another resolution, this time to appoint election judges for the school board election taking place on November 5th, and the list of proposed election judges is in the board packet.
Absolutely, and so some of the expectations of our board election secretary, Ms. Iwa, is to continue bringing things to us to make our election official. We have seen the ballot, we've seen some of those work. We have called the election officially, and so the next step in this process is to appoint our election judges. And so by resolution, the names are in front of you today, so waiting for action.
I will move that we approve the resolution as presented.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Tenzing and a second by Mr. Paulus. Any discussion? As this is a resolution, I will pull the board. We'll go this way this time. Paulus.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Ashmead.
Aye.
Tenzing.
Aye.
Cole. Aye. The chair votes aye, and the resolution passes. Third resolution is up next. This time to support the cooperative agreement with the Academy of Holy Angels for boys swimming and diving.
Yes, and so on a yearly basis, we come back with our co-ops, and our co-ops get approved on a regular basis, and so this allows us to partner with Holy Angels for boys swimming and diving. Holy Angels Richfield to create a co-op.
I will move that we approve the resolution for this cooperative as presented, and I will also, on behalf of the boys swim and dive team, thank Director Boy and our head coach Matt Graham for their work in getting this put together. We've got a great swimming program here in Richfield, which has got some recruiting problems at the present time, and it'll be good to see this co-op as I think it's a win-win for both of our organizations. Holy Angels kids will get to use a fabulous facility that is, just a short distance from their school. And we can maybe start to leverage building some excitement for our students to participate in swimming.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Tenzing and a second by Mr. Ashmead. Any further discussion on this item?
Why wasn't this an issue years ago?
I think different sports intermittently sort of bounce back and forth with the amount of students participating. And
So did we initiate this, or did they come to us?
I actually don't have that answer.
We,
I can certainly check.
My understanding is that Holy Angels hasn't had a boys swimming program in some time. They do have some boys at Holy Angels who might like to swim. Historically, our program had been large enough that we didn't feel a compelling need, as Steve mentions. But I think we're starting to see that there's a win-win. So it just sort of evolves that way.
For what it's worth, in addition, the governing board of the Tri-Metro, the Tri-Metro just approved the conference boys swimming and diving for next year. And so that will also be able to be a conference sport for us, which will be an exciting addition.
So I kind of just wanted to know, how do the students feel about this? Like the boys swimming, like the boys that are in the sport.
Yeah. So collaboration with the students who are on the team is definitely part of the process. So basically the process about forming a co-op would start with talking with the current members of the team. That's been happening over the past year. So we have everything that I know is that we have buy-in from kids. Yeah.
And the other sports that we have similar agreements. So the track team is also with Holy Angels.
Girls
we
hockey.
have girls hockey with Holy Angels.
Robotics.
Boys hockey with school. Southwest Christian.
Robotics with Holy Angels.
Gymnastics.
Gymnastics. Thank you. So there's actually a pretty sizable number of teams where we are working with different schools now. You asked the question. I'm curious if you are hearing different things.
Oh no, that's why I asked, because I haven't heard anything of it. So I kind of just wanted to know what the students thought about it. Because you always have like the rivalries, you know, how it's like football and but then there's like girls hockey where like it's one team. So I was always just curious as to like how like the dynamic of that.
It's a good question. Any further discussion? We do have a motion and a second. Okay, as this is a resolution, I will again pull the board. Cole? Aye. Tenzing?
Aye.
Ashmead?
Aye.
Malik? Aye. Paulus?
Aye.
The chair votes aye and the resolution passes. Next, we are finally back to the Centennial Facilities Project and a request to seek bids for this work.
All right, so as a follow-up to the earlier presentation, sharing all the information, we are asking the board to allow us to go out and seek bids for the Centennial Elementary School construction project. If approved, bids would publicly be open on November 12th at 2 p.m. And then we would be coming back to the board with a recommendation to award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder. Said proposed ad is in our board packets.
Based upon the presentation that we had earlier tonight, I am happy to move that we go out for bid as recommended.
So we have a motion by Mr. Tenzing, and I'll give the second to Ms. Cole this time. Is there any discussion?
Off today.
Just a half beat slow.
It's sharing a microphone. Okay, all in favor, please
It's
say aye.
behind my house, that's
There we go.
mine.
Yes, that's totally what I was thinking. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the authorization is granted. And last but certainly not least, in this section of the agenda, we have several donations that were made to the districts.
All right, so Marie Collins donated $100 to Richfield Public Schools in support of our outstanding lunch balances. So thank you to Marie Collins. Kristen Schack, a Target employee, donated $10 to the Richfield High School Random Acts of Kindness account. So thank you to Kristen Schack. The Top Family Foundation donated $3,000 to the Richfield High School Random Acts of Kindness account. So thank you to the Top Family Foundation. And then the Greater Twin Cities Honda dealers and Richfield Honda donated $5,000 to the Richfield STEM School to support STEM curriculum, instruction, and programming. So thank you to Greater Twin Cities Honda dealers and Richfield Honda.
I move that we accept the donations with gratitude.
Oh, you.
I'm not doing it.
Okay, so we're a little silly right now. I'm enjoying this. We have a motion to accept the donations with gratitude by Mr. Paulus and a second by Mr. Ashmead. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the donations are accepted with gratitude. So we move into advanced planning, and as always, begin with any updates to share on legislative work, knowing that this is going to be getting going here soon in coming weeks and months.
So I can share AMSD. The AMSD board meeting was this past Friday. Dr. Roby was there with me. We had a presentation from the census coordinator, complete count coordinator from the state of Minnesota. And we also heard about property tax, sort of an update on property tax ins and outs from the state Department of Revenue. AMSD is obviously in the process of putting together a legislative platform. And we as a group also, I know we've kind of talked about thinking about our legislative agenda. So just for our student representatives, an opportunity that you guys will have as we move forward is usually in January. We have an opportunity to sit down as a group with our legislators. So the representatives and senators that represent us up at the state legislature. And we get that opportunity to just sort of have that dialogue with them about what's important to us in terms of stuff with the legislature. So this is a chance for you guys to, again, speak up and be involved. So we'd be happy to meet with you guys offline about how that plays out and maybe do some education for you on the issues that we think are kind of circulating, and then hear from you. What are you seeing, and could think about how that interacts with the state legislature.
So to restate that and remind us, we'll be bringing back a draft legislative platform, sort of that first draft for us to begin that conversation. That'll be coming back to us soon, most likely at our next meeting. And then our legislative platform are the top priorities of Richfield Public Schools as we talk to our elected officials about what are the things we want to talk about at a state level and what are those things that are important to Richfield. So we have that conversation here. We define what those are, and then we bring those to our state legislators locally and then also the state.
And I would just say one example that is very clear in my mind that previous student board representatives have, I think, helped us really focus on and shape is around MCAs and the big impact that they have for all of our students. And so it's been really helpful to hear from our student board members about that. So that's just one thing of several that we'll probably be talking about in the next couple months. Okay, any other information and or questions that members of the board would like to share with each other?
I will add that the Richfield Foundation is having their Autumn YK fundraiser this Thursday at 6:30 at the Wood Lake Center. Anyone is there, that's fun. It's a nice little community event and a fundraiser for the
I have one thing from one of my liaison assignments. So on the Work Experience Advisory Committee meeting a week or so ago, that works with the work experience group at the high school, but also with the Transitions Plus program, which is located at the 287 building. And so at the 287 buildings where we hosted it, we actually got a tour of a new lab. They've just installed the PACE lab, which is a practical assessment and exploration system. And it's really neat. It has a lot of practical, real-world job training labs that the students can work through. And what really caught my eye about it, so this includes things in like food service or retail or construction. It's basically job training for the students in the Transitions Plus program and preparing them for life beyond school and supports that it provides, and hopefully for independence. But what was interesting is the lab was purchased, as I understand it, with third-party medical third-party reimbursement money, which was the first time I've actually heard a use for that. even though it's valuable, you know, so as you know, within the special ed population, we can file for reimbursement for certain services that our parents and staff are providing to the students. Within the population, we get reimbursed by the medical insurance provider. So anyway, it was a really neat lab, and it was a really, you know, for a large purchase, I imagine, but really cool, and they were very excited to have it.
Okay, our next meeting will take place on Monday, October 21st at 7 p.m. and will begin with time for public comment. Our first meeting of November has been rescheduled a second time now. So the meeting to canvass the results of the school board election on November 5th will now be taking place on Tuesday, November 12th. And I will be out of state that day, so Mr. Paulus is going to have the gavel for that meeting. Get excited, everybody.
Yes, I'll take ownership of that. I found out that we were too efficient. And so our meeting that was proposed for Thursday, November 7th to canvass the election was within the possible timeline for a recount, should that be required. So we were strongly suggested to move that meeting in the small percentage chance that occurred, and so we are moving that meeting to Tuesday, November 12th, which will provide Mr. Powell a chance to sit with the golden gavel.
He trumpet power.
Finally, are there any items that board members would like to request for discussion on an upcoming agenda, in addition to all of the things that Superintendent Yudowski has already been taking notes on throughout this meeting? Okay, so before we entertain a motion to move into closed session, which we will do momentarily, thanks to everyone for being here this evening, with special appreciation to our three newest board members, Naomi, Lucy, Diane. We are so excited to have you with us for the rest of the year. And I know you're going to be working on a schedule, so we might not always get to see all three of you, but we'll be super excited to have you with us from here on out. So, and special thanks for jumping in. This was kind of a big meeting to jump into, so thanks so much. Okay, so as allowed by Minnesota Statute 13D.03, the board may hold a closed session for the purposes of labor negotiation strategy. Is there a motion to enter into closed session?
Second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Malik and a second by Mr. Paulus. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and after a brief recess to clear the room, the board will reconvene in closed session. Thanks, everyone.